Hello friends, welcome to the meditation sharing channel Lotus Zen Tan. Have you ever wondered what truly nourishes your mind beyond food and breath? There is a kind of nourishment that does not come from the earth or the sky, yet it sustains your very being. In Buddhism, there are subtle sources of energy that do not nourish the body but sustain the soul itself. In the previous 3 videos, I shared about 3 kinds of nutriment: physical food that nourishes the body, contact as nutriment that feeds sensations, and mental volition as nutriment, the energy of practice that nourishes the will. Today, we move from mental volition as nutriment, the will to act, to consciousness as nutriment. The awareness that sustains the subtle and rapid activity within the mind. Find a quiet place, sit down with crossed legs, close your eyes, keep your back straight, and prepare to observe your in and out breath to calm and focus the mind. When concentration is established and the breath becomes deep, gentle, and even within calm awareness, we begin to contemplate how thoughts arise and fade away. When the will arises, that is mental volition as nutriment, the source of energy that drives life. When clear awareness arises, that is consciousness as nutriment, the energy that maintains the stream of consciousness. These 2 sources of energy are closely connected yet profoundly different in how they create karma and lead to rebirth. They may seem alike, but their difference determines the path of suffering or liberation. Together with Lotus Zen Tan, breathe gently and listen deeply to explore the subtle nourishment of the mind, where mindfulness and wisdom are born in every moment. Inhale, gently follow the breath as it flows through your nose, fills your chest, and reaches down to your belly. Exhale, feel the breath leaving through your nose and notice your belly softening and sinking. When the 6 senses receive pleasant or unpleasant feelings, that is contact as nutriment, the first nourishment of the mind. From those feelings, the mind begins to react and choose, forming the will, which is mental volition as nutriment. When the will is nourished by greed, anger, or compassion, it becomes the driving force behind action. Each thought, each decision is a karmic seed planted into the stream of consciousness. When the energy of intention settles, the mind begins to observe the one who wants, and in that awareness of wanting, consciousness as nutriment arises through deep observation. From there, consciousness as nutriment manifests not as the will to act, but as pure awareness observing all movements of the mind. Contact as nutriment nourishes emotion, mental volition as nutriment nourishes intention, and consciousness as nutriment nourishes mindfulness. When we live in mindfulness, this process transforms from reaction into awareness, from movement into stillness. Where true recognition arises as consciousness as nutriment. In that stillness, we clearly see that all mental nutriments return to one point, the pure, unconditional knowing called awareness or consciousness as nutriment. And when consciousness as nutriment becomes pure, the will driven by craving and suffering ceases, leaving only the light of wisdom, peace, and liberation. Consciousness as nutriment is the stream of knowing energy operating ceaselessly in every instant of the mind. Throughout our growth, we realize consciousness as nutriment through countless experiences that form wisdom. Whenever the eyes see, the ears hear, or the mind thinks, consciousness arises instantly, faster than a flash of lightning. The moment an object touches the eye, consciousness reacts, recognizing form, sound, or idea in an immeasurable instant. The arising and ceasing of consciousness as nutriment follow one another endlessly, like invisible ripples on the surface of still water. In 1 second, there may be hundreds or even thousands of moments of consciousness arising and ceasing without our awareness. It is this stream of arising and ceasing that nourishes the flow of the mind, creating the feeling that we are alive and knowing. When we look at a flower, the eye consciousness perceives its shape, the mind consciousness distinguishes its color, and overall awareness records the whole scene, all happening in a moment beyond measure. Consciousness as nutriment is not slow like thinking. It happens even before we realize that we are thinking. When the mind is disturbed, consciousness is pulled and whirled into countless objects, creating a sense of fatigue and distraction. When the mind is calm, consciousness as nutriment becomes clear and bright, swift yet precise, like a mirror reflecting all things without retaining any image. The more mindfulness we have to observe, the more we recognize the birth, decay, rebirth, and circulation of subtle consciousness in each breath. Every time we form an idea and follow the breath, a new consciousness arises. Every time we release a thought, the old consciousness disappears. We focus on observing the in and out breath and watching the emotions and thoughts that are operating within us. Inhale, gently follow the breath as it flows through your nose, fills your chest, and reaches down to your belly. Exhale, feel the breath leaving through your nose and notice your belly softening and sinking. It is this extremely rapid operation that makes the cycle of rebirth continue because the mind has never stopped. But when the practitioner becomes aware and looks deeply into the moment of arising and ceasing of consciousness, that whirlpool gradually slows down. And when consciousness as nutriment returns to its pure nature, time itself stops, leaving only pure knowing, unborn and undying. When will arises and directs the mind toward a goal, that is mental volition as nutriment, immediately calculating and creating the energy of desire. After that, we act and filter through memory, gradually shifting through operation, and consciousness will recognize that we are aware. That seeing is no longer an action but pure knowing. At that moment, consciousness as nutriment begins to appear. From the driving force of will, of mental volition as nutriment, the mind shifts into a state of observation and awareness. The stream of energy becomes still and transforms into rapidly operating consciousness. When mental volition as nutriment turns into habitual reaction, consciousness as nutriment becomes the pure nourishment of wisdom and peace. Contact as nutriment is what we perceive through the senses, such as seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and touching. This is the form of consciousness based purely on sensations. We still need to consume this sensory nourishment daily because we cannot live without it. Mental volition as nutriment refers to thoughts, imagination, judgments, and reasoning, to consciousness created by the mind. And consciousness as nutriment is the direct and clear awareness of the true nature of things and phenomena, not distorted by feelings or thoughts. It is pure knowing, seeing things exactly as they are, without addition, omission, or attachment. In meditation, when the mind is quiet and mindful, one can directly experience consciousness as nutriment, perceiving the impermanent and selfless nature of all phenomena. Inhale, gently follow the breath as it flows through your nose, fills your chest, and reaches down to your belly. Exhale, feel the breath leaving through your nose and notice your belly softening and sinking. When our breathing becomes chaotic or constrained, if we notice it early, we can adjust and return to peace. When ignorance covers awareness, humans no longer perceive reality correctly but only through a partial lens. When emotions overwhelm and the breath becomes irregular, perception turns false, thinking becomes wrong, and actions deviate, making the mind unclear. When will and desire interfere, perception becomes distorted, leading to wrong judgment about events. Strong external emotions can make a person forget the true nature of phenomena. When out of balance, we easily fall into judgment, comparison, and discrimination, creating suffering. Ignorance covering consciousness as nutriment makes actions and speech lack wisdom, harming oneself and others. When emotions dominate, the mind loses calmness to observe and is easily led by illusion. Excessive discrimination leads to imbalance in perception, resulting in tension and disharmony. When consciousness as nutriment is veiled by ignorance, humans find it difficult to perceive the truth and become bound in the cycle of suffering and rebirth. Losing connection with consciousness as nutriment makes the soul lose freedom, easily falling into fear, anger, and craving. Consciousness as nutriment helps people awaken, clearly recognizing what is truly happening. Through consciousness as nutriment, everything appears truthfully, not distorted by emotions or will. Consciousness as nutriment opens the ability to see the true nature of phenomena without the lens of defilements. When practicing consciousness as nutriment, the mind is no longer led by illusions but sees things as they really are. Consciousness as nutriment frees people from false judgments and imposed beliefs. Thanks to consciousness as nutriment, every action and thought becomes wise and in harmony with natural truth. Consciousness as nutriment is the path to realizing eternal truths, independent of any conditions or viewpoints. When awakened through consciousness as nutriment, one can observe life without being driven by desire or fear. Consciousness as nutriment helps one see through impermanence and the true nature of all phenomena, leading to luminous wisdom. Long-term practice of consciousness as nutriment brings inner freedom and enlightenment beyond all attachments. Inhale gently, follow the breath as it flows through your nose, fills your chest, and reaches down to your belly. Exhale, feel the breath leaving through your nose and notice your belly softening and sinking. When consciousness as nutriment is active, it is the light of awareness. In each breath, consciousness as nutriment is the stream of mindful energy nourishing the mind. It helps us recognize each movement and each emotion occurring within body and mind. When not covered by ignorance, consciousness as nutriment illuminates all phenomena as they truly are. The mind knows clearly without judgment, seeing all things as arising from causes and conditions. At this stage, awareness is still dynamic movement within stillness, brightness within silence. Consciousness as nutriment is the knowing nature manifesting amidst the flow of life, within all feelings and phenomena. So what happens when consciousness as nutriment stops? When the mind no longer clings to objects, the stream of consciousness gradually settles like a lake without ripples. Knowing no longer turns outward or inward but becomes directionless and vast. At that moment, there is no longer I who know or what is known, only a silent, radiant awareness beyond name. Emotions and volition no longer dominate. The energy of discrimination dissolves into the boundless space of non-self. Life continues to unfold, but there is no observer and nothing being observed. That is the moment when consciousness as nutriment ceases and pure knowing fully reveals itself. Like the moon emerging from clouds, it is emptiness and suchness, the self-luminous nature beyond birth and death. In that state, there is no possession, no distinction between right and wrong. All phenomena still appear, yet there are no traces of the seer or the seen. Here we have just experienced consciousness as nutriment through the final meditative stage. The journey in the game of breath will become more and more fascinating if you truly cherish it. This habit also holds the key to unlocking every gateway to explore both body and mind. The upcoming sessions will be increasingly engaging, so stay tuned and continue practicing with me in this video and the next ones. Please click the subscribe button, like, and share with others if you find the video interesting and helpful. Thank you.